What is up, my friends? You are very welcome along to tonight's Late Night Agenda. It is, of course, a brand new week, but the same BARCOLA headache still persists. So, how are the nerves out there, ladies and gents? I hope you're all doing all right. I know the time is against us, the clock is against us, but again, confidence remains on it. So we'll tell you what we know tonight. We'll talk about the MBAYE situation, as there's been a little bit said over in France to suggest that Liverpool are inching closer there. We'll talk about Fede Chiesa and a potential move to Spain. We'll talk Alisson Becker, Curtis Jones, and lots more. But to kick us off tonight, I thought I would ask the opening poll question as a simple one. Are you confident that Liverpool will get the signings of both Bradley Barcola and Ibrahim MBAYE done in this transfer window? It's a simple yes or no one on this. We don't have an unsure option because, well, we want a definitive answer. So we'll check back in on that one in a little bit. Of course, we're going to tell you what we know here, as we always try to do. But I want to kick off with a super chat that came in actually just as we went live. Rajat, how are you, mate? Nice to see you. Said, hello, Craig. I'm kind of worried for Liverpool since we're not good at transfers late in the window. After the right wing gets done, right back and DM should be a priority. I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, Rajat, if you look at late in the window. Obviously, the situation with Mark Gay last summer didn't go as we would have wanted to. And yeah, that one wasn't nice. But if you look at other deals, like we did get Isak done quite late, and we have done late deals in the past. Now, the one thing that jumped out to me, mate, off your post was the DM situation. And I'm going to refer you to something that somebody else said on this one, rather than me just giving you my opinion on it. I want to just take you to a comment from David Lynch, speaking with our friends at Anfield Index. And he said this, so I don't really know about the midfield situation, as I've said all the way through. We can talk about Wharton being linked and whatnot, but this was David Lynch speaking on Anfield Index. He said, I had a conversation this morning, and I think the way it was phrased to me, there is close to 0% chance of a midfielder being signed, even if Curtis Jones leaves. So that's what he's hearing from the club side of it. That's obviously from David's sources there. I don't know about the midfield situation. I absolutely agree, Rajat, and I agree with everybody in the chat. But I've tried to say, from my side, I've always said to you guys, it would be very unlike FSG to spend more money in this window without looking to recoup some. And in the last couple of nights, I've pretty much said exactly that on the stream, although I don't have the information around the midfield position. If you look at the outlay and what we're going to spend, it would be our biggest window if we were to bring in a Wharton, talking about net spend-wise. So that's the part that always worried me. The right-back situation, I really don't know if we do anything there or not, Rajat, but I'm absolutely confident on Barcola, but the MBAYE situation, genuinely, not a lot of people from the Liverpool side know much about this. So it is a lot of reports coming from France. And again, I'm going to give you some quotes from David Lynch, speaking with Anfield Index in a little bit. But speaking about Barcola, and these are his words, so I'm not using them out of context or anything. He said, I think we're pretty close to the next bit of information we hear, it being a done deal. And that's Barcola. And he was very honest and said he doesn't know much on Ibrahim MBAYE either. And I don't have much on MBAYE. But, of course, the situation did come out tonight. And we did tell you guys that Liverpool met with MBAYE's representative and some of his family members at the Liverpool offices in London a couple of days ago. Now, I was honest with you guys and said, I don't know what that meeting was about. But if you take the time frame, and you look at what we said about the meeting taking place, and it was the second meeting, because there was one over in Paris before that, where I believe David Woodfine, if I'm not mistaken. So if you look at those two things, and then you line them up with what Fabrice Hawkins has said, it certainly looks very positive around the situation with MBAYE. Let me read out exactly what he said, so again, I'm not misquoting anybody. So he said this, breaking, Liverpool have reached an agreement with Ibrahim MBAYE. The two parties have agreed on financial terms of a 5-year contract. He has made his choice. He doesn't wish to pursue the interest from Bayer Leverkusen. As exclusively revealed by RMC Sport, Liverpool want to sign both MBAYE and Barcola. And then there was another report from Fabrice Hawkins that said Liverpool accelerating talks with PSG to sign Ibrahim MBAYE and also remain to get Bradley Barcola with deal expected this week, or offer expected this week. Another report from Fabrice Hawkins said Liverpool now want to step things up with Paris Saint-Germain. Talks are continuing for Bradley Barcola despite a gap in valuation. Liverpool still want to get the deal over the line. Then he goes on to talk a little bit about Cody Gakpo, and he said Cody Gakpo could leave, with Spurs keeping an eye on the situation. That would ease the financial burden on Liverpool while also creating room for Barcola. For example, PSG and Liverpool must now reach an agreement over the valuation. So, from the 4 or 5 journalists that we've been keeping tabs with over the Barcola situation, they're at different levels of where they think it is. Some think the fee has been agreed there. And I'm not coming on to say that because I'm not at that point yet where I feel like saying the fee is agreed. I'm not comfortable enough with that. But again, I'm going to say it's going to get done. It is going to get done. Despite all the stuff coming out of France that said, well, PSG would be happy to keep him for another year and the player would be happy to stay for another year. Would he? Like, let's look at it realistically. They've gone out there and they've bought in loads of new players. They've brought in 3 new attackers in recent days, and they left Barcola and MBAYE out of the squad for the Super Cup final against Lens. That tells you something. It tells you that, of course, they'll say the lads' heads mightn't have been in the right place, but it tells you that their minds are probably not with PSG for the future. Now, I don't have anywhere near as much confidence in MBAYE because I don't have the intel on it. But on Barcola, I get the frustration, but I'm telling you right now, that deal is getting done and Barcola is going to be a Liverpool player. It's just a matter of when. And like I said, quoting David Lynch, he wouldn't be surprised if the next thing that we hear around the situation with Barcola is done deal. So let's wait and see on that one. MBAYE and Salah stats and data are eerily similar. I have to say, Colin, I don't know all that much about Ibrahim MBAYE as a footballer. I know he's a talent. I know that he's been somebody who football clubs have been looking at for a while and is undoubtedly a big star in the future. But I don't know what level he's at now. So for me, it would be really unfair to come in and say, I think he's ready to come in and play in the right wing straight away. I honestly don't know. And my reading of the situation and from speaking to people, I do expect that even if Cody Gakpo moves, that's not going to be till after the Newcastle game. So in my mind and people that I've spoken to, it definitely feels like we'll see Gakpo starting against Newcastle on Sunday and that his move to Spurs, if it materialises, will be a late one in the window. After, of course, we do our business. So if you're looking at predicting 11 for the weekend, I'm probably leaning towards thinking Gakpo's still going to be in it. Now, of course, the fact that he played in the pre-season friendly against Como certainly shows that nothing is imminent between him and Spurs because, of course, Liverpool are still trying to figure out the MBAYE situation. Roger said, it's been an extremely long summer. Glad we get to watch the Reds back in action, especially against Newcastle. Yeah, it really has. It's felt like such a long summer, mate. You know, the World Cup was a nice distraction, but it isn't Liverpool. So I've been waiting for the Reds to be back. Pre-season, it's great, but it's not the same thing. But it was lovely yesterday. I'm not going to lie, Roger. It was absolutely lovely to see Xhaka make his debut, play so well. Really good as well to see Araujo come on in the second half, and I thought he didn't look out of place at all. So yeah, lots to... Oh, hang on. So, more information that's just dropped around Barcola. And again, you can only see the end game here. This coming out of RMC Sport in France just now. Bradley Barcola will not rejoin the PSG will not rejoin PSG until the transfer is resolved. PSG do not want to risk a potential transfer with Liverpool, expect to make a new offer quickly. So he's not going to be in and around the PSG team until this gets sorted out. Now, what does that tell you? Do you know, like I said, I've always had the confidence on Barcola because I have the intel on it. I just don't have it on MBAYE, so I'm not going to be the one that says he's going to come. But it's certainly looking like we want the two of them. That's where I'm at with that one. Even the journalists that I've been speaking with today, again, the confidence is there with Barcola, but they're confident, but not to the same extent with MBAYE because I think the conversations are probably relatively, I don't want to say new compared to Barcola, but we've been after Barcola for at least 18 months, 24 months. So yeah, for this one, I'm happy that we're getting them and we will get them. They still keep talking about 115 million as the base figure. We'll see what happens with that one. But yeah, that's where we're at with the situation. And look, I know this isn't ideal for us all. And I'm sitting here again, pissed off, bored, waiting, looking for the release, looking for the excitement with everybody. But, you know, it's going to be worth it when it happens. That's all I can say at the minute. Right, let's quickly just have a little look at a bit of news that came out today. Just judging off what the gentleman said a minute ago about looking forward to the Reds being back in action. Well, we now know the officials for the game against Newcastle at St James's Park. Stuart Atwell is going to be the referee in charge. Konstantin Hadzidakis will be referee assistant number 1. Lee Betts will be referee assistant number 2. Fourth official, Tony Harrington. And VAR is James Bell, with assistant VAR, Edward Smart. So that's where we're at with regard to the officials for the game at the weekend anyway. And again, a reminder, it's a 4:30 kickoff against Newcastle. Keith, thank you, mate. Said, evening, Craig. Great channel. The best on the planet. Appreciate that, mate. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your team, for all that you do, brother. Love you, bud, from Keith in Cornwall. Thank you, Keith. Man, look, like I say, pleasure. Love being in here chatting with you guys every night, mate. And yeah, I've been hard at work. I was at the doctor's earlier on today, so I was playing a little bit of catch up, and I recorded the video earlier on this afternoon. I hadn't even talked to people yet, so I was still playing catch up. But this evening, I've spent the last few hours since I've been back from the doctor, yeah, just working through some news and trying to figure out where we are. Do you think BARCOLA plays against Newcastle? I'd be very, very surprised, because let's look at the time frame right now. Like, if he came in, let's say even fee was agreed tomorrow, and we're working on a best case scenario. So let's say, hypothetically, fee was agreed tomorrow, comes in, does his medical, does a bit of club media, starts training. You're probably Thursday, Friday before he starts doing a bit of training. So my guess would be we'd see him for the next league game. And that's why I said at the very start of the stream, the people that I'm speaking with fully expect Cody Gakpo to start the season with Liverpool against Newcastle. And then any potential move for him would be at the very, very end of the window. So after that game. And that kind of lines up, if you think about it logically, as a time frame as well. Is BARCOLA or MBAYE more definite? Well, I can only tell you my side and what I know. And for me to sit here right now, I would say Bradley BARCOLA. I have far more concrete, credible, excited news on that one. MBAYE, I don't know. And some people that I'm speaking to think it'll happen, but they just don't have the intel to the same extent that we do on BARCOLA. So that's why I'm saying I'm not going to be the one to come on here and tell you MBAYE is done or isn't done. Let's wait and see for other people to have their say on that. And to be fair, Fabrice Hawkins has been very good around it, as has some of the reporting coming out of France. So I did say to you guys a couple of things, and I told you that we met with him in Paris initially. We met with his representatives, and I told you that he had a meeting at the Liverpool offices the other day in London. And then, you know, then an announcement comes out that he's agreed a package with Liverpool on a 5-year deal. So, you know, putting all of those two things together, you'd have to think it's something they're exploring at the very least. But I don't want to get anybody's hopes up without knowing what I know, and I don't know enough on MBAYE to say to you that both of them are coming in. It definitely looks like Liverpool want to get both of them, and it does seem very possible. So, you know, if I was a betting man at this moment in time, yeah, I probably would bet towards both of them coming in and Gakpo leaving. But you know, I would class the BARCOLA bet as a surefire thing, whereas the MBAYE one added into it, I'd be gambling a little bit with it. Daniel, how are you, my friend? Said, after yesterday's defensive debuts, I'm more confident in the season ahead. I think there'll be a few clean sheets, still need some depth though. Look, I think it's wrong not to get a midfielder. I have to put that out there into the world. Like, I do think it's wrong for Liverpool not to go out and get a defensive midfielder. And I do think it will impact us in the season. But, you know, I don't want to just come on and shout and moan all the time, because it's not really going to help at this point. I just want to get on the record that I agree with you all, that we are still short of right back, in my opinion. We are still going to be short of DM. And there's another part of this that I've got to be honest about as well. I don't like the time frame of this. I don't like how long it's taken, and I don't like that, again, here we are in another saga in a transfer window, because I want the manager to have the best chance to start on the right foot and get off to a good start. And he isn't he isn't getting the players in early enough. And that's not on him, that's not on you, that's not on me, that's on the recruitment team. So they haven't done their jobs well enough. I've been pretty vocal about that all summer. And the fears that we had at the very start of the summer about going into the season a little bit underprepared are probably going to come true. So then after that, it's a case of, what do? Do you hope for the best? Or do we see the wheels coming off at some point? Now, to get back to what Daniel said defensively, that certainly yesterday, mate, made me... it calmed a few nerves, Daniel. I agree with you on that. Jeremy Jacquet, so much impressed me about him. And I know it's only 45 minutes, but his confidence, his organisation skills, and the fact that, he got up and got himself on the score sheet and made some good recovery challenges, I liked it. But what impressed me about Araujo as well was you could see his reading of the game. You could see it. You could see he knew where to be. He knew what passing channels to block. He knew where to come in to intercept. And as they get repetition playing together more, I do think, it's looking good. It really is. I didn't know what to expect from Jacquet because I wouldn't be somebody that hugely followed his career over in France. But my goodness, I was impressed yesterday as a fan when he played. And, he could be, dare I say it, Virgil van Dijk 2.0 at the levels. He looks so polished and so confident. Michael, how are you? Michael said, hey Craig, the net spend is going to be more than last season. Surely we're going to start seeing some outgoings before we see any more incomings. Thank you for all the great work. So at the minute, our outgoings about, about 95 million. And I think we brought in 700 grand or something like that. So at the minute, our outgoings is about that. Now, if you throw in, and I don't know the number, so let's just put it out there as a guess at, let's say £165 million for BARCOLA and MBAYE, and that is a guesstimation number. So if you add that in, then you've got what? 160, 250 million quid, give or take, minus the money you get in for Curtis Jones, which would be about 30, minus the money you get in for Gakpo. So you're still on a net spending at around 150 grand, or million, sorry, 150 million, which would be pretty much where we were last summer. But it doesn't seem as exciting a window because we haven't had the sheer amount of volume of transfers. But there's no getting away from it. If we end up with BARCOLA and MBAYE, that's great, but it isn't enough. We still need a DM, we still need a right back. And the situation around Alisson concerns me, and I'll get into that in a little bit as well. Not because I don't think Alisson's good enough, it's more a case of what nearly happened. It's JB said 120 for BARCOLA, 45 for MBAYE. Slightly, I tweak it a little bit, but I am guessing. I would guess 125 all in for BARCOLA. And maybe, where I struggle with this, and again, I don't have the intel, but where I struggle with this is, we know what the number was that they were negotiating with Leverkusen. So the world kind of knew what the asking price was, and it was somewhere between 40 and 50 million euro when they were negotiating with Leverkusen for MBAYE. So they can't really turn around now and start asking for stupid money. So, I do think they'll work that one out because it seems like you've got a willing seller for both of these guys. So, yeah, I guess about 125 and 40 in pounds, but I am guessing on the transfer fees. We're undermining the risk of signings for an unproven manager and signing everything he wants. Still needs to prove something, not like he's Pep. So we're undermining the risk of signings for an unproven manager. I don't really know where to go with that, mate, because how do we say unproven? He's the Liverpool manager. That's the way I look at it. And the Liverpool manager should be backed. Right? Because if you've any doubts about him being in the job, you shouldn't have appointed him. So you can't then appoint him and not back him. So I don't think any of this has to do with them not believing or waiting to see if they believe in him. And this is why, again, we go back to the sporting director role and why this is really important. Because this it isn't, nor should it be, on Iriola to build out the squad. That's the sporting director's role. Iriola is a head coach, not a manager. So yes, he will have an input on the style of player he'd like and what attributes they need. And of course, he'll speak with potential incomings. But the sporting director is the one that set out the football philosophy from the ground up. So it's actually him that we should be talking about with transfers and not what Iriola wants. Because yes, Iriola will be involved in the process to some extent, but it's the sporting director that does these things. And that's the whole point of his role. A sporting director is supposed to be there to make sure that things go smoothly if you need to change head coach. And the philosophy of the club doesn't change and the style of football doesn't change. So I don't think it's anything to do with anything other than FSG are cheap. And I keep coming back to that, mate, because I don't even want to entertain the idea that they've appointed a manager that they don't think is good enough. What's the point of that? And I don't think that they would go in with that mindset. And to call Iriola unproven, I think, I get where you're coming from some extent, because yes, he hasn't managed in the Champions League, but he has built up to this point in his career. And he is somebody highly regarded within the game. And we do have experience of what his teams are like in the Premier League, what type of way he sets up and how hard they were to play against. So, yeah, I don't think that's it, to be honest, mate. I don't think it's nothing to do with the fact that we're just not thinking about the manager being a new manager. No, these are positions that we need to solve regardless. And like I said, they ripped up Salah's contract. So, what about Subamendi? We were in for him before. I've no idea, Paul. Not got a clue. I think Arsenal could be open to selling him. Again, not sure they'd sell to us, but I don't know about midfield. All I know is that as a fan, like all of you guys, I want a DM. But to hear David Lynch say that, because he would have people he speaks to within the club, he formerly worked at Liverpool Football Club, so he knows people inside the clubs, and to see him on Anfield Index, he's pretty much at 0% is what he's hearing, chance of a DM. Now, I don't know where else to go with that, because I don't have anything that I can add to the conversation. And if he's hearing that, it doesn't mean that it's definitive, because of course things could change. But I did warn you guys the other day that it would be very unusual for FSG to put in this level of output in a window without looking to recoup more money. And that's where I thought this might all fall down a little bit. Because if we were to bring in Wharton, they're not really going to be able to offset that. And that's why I kept saying to you, they were probably expecting that McAllister offer to come in, but it never became forthcoming. So this is my opinion, is probably why we don't see a DM being brought in, because the club didn't get the sale that they were expecting. And that is me guessing, but that's the way I read the situation. LFC Forever said, love the Iriola appointment, don't get me wrong. Just highlighting there's an inherent risk when signing a manager like him and splurging at the same time. But I think when you talk about splurging or spending, you have to spend for the future anyway. You have to spend for whoever's going to be in charge. And this is why we have a difference between a sporting director and a head coach or a manager. So, for me, everything falls on the owner's feet when it comes to recruitment and stuff like that, because ultimately they're the ones with the purse strings. They're the ones who make these appointments. And we can all see that Richard Hughes hasn't done his job well enough. We've seen it over multiple windows, but, it seems like to be a bit of a clearing of the guard in a few months when the new investors get their feet in under the table and maybe change things up a little bit. We're going to see new appointment made of a sporting director anyway. Bison, how are you, bro? Said, hope you're well, mate. You called it. The reason I follow you isn't just your sparkling personality, but you're more reliable than journalists blowing smoke up our starfish. Look, it's a tough one for me, isn't it? Because, obviously, there are things I know, things I don't know. And I will always tell you what I don't know. But I can't be, when I do say things I do know, I can never be responsible for a time frame, because that's not how this works. And I wish I could sit here, because I want to have the same level of confidence I have with MBAYE as I do about BARCOLA. But I don't have it. So I'm hopeful on it. But that's just, that's where we're at with it. And look, I'm with all of you guys. It's not good enough, this window. It hasn't been good enough. And, I'll never be backwards about coming forwards. I'll never bite my lip on that. I'll always call it as I see it. And I see the problems coming in for the season, same as all of you guys. And same as Jamie Carragher talking about the same issues that we would have had last year in midfield we're going to have this year. He's not wrong. But thank you, Bison, mate. It's been lovely getting to know you a little bit over the last while. Always really kind comments as well, mate. Thank you. Roger said, check Anfield sector post, Craig. Thinks they're breaking something, but watching you can't multitask as I'm male. Oh, mate, I can't multitask. I don't know if it's to do with me being male or not, or just being a dope, but I can't multitask either. So they just said, what they said was, Arsenal would love to have BARCOLA, but he only wants Liverpool. And that's what I've said to you guys all the way along. Like, I've got 6 different sources probably, around the BARCOLA stuff on different sides of it. And everyone's super confident. Like, there's nobody with any level of doubt around BARCOLA. And even, this is the dance now. This is brinksmanship between PSG and Liverpool. You know, because they can't say, well, yeah, he's obviously off. We left him out of the squad because, well, we know he's probably going to go. They can't come out and say that. So the manager has to come up with something in the press conference. And the club have to put something out. But, you know, sometimes, like I say, you just have to read between the lines and you just have to say, what's the common sense outcome here? And you've seen BARCOLA, or maybe you didn't. He flew through the mix zone yesterday after the game. Didn't stop. Didn't come out with the rest of his teammates. He was out of there quite quickly. And he does want Liverpool. That's really, really clear. And it is that insistence from his side that it's Liverpool he wants that have made Liverpool so confident in this, because it's been so categorical that it doesn't matter what Arsenal do. It doesn't matter what others do. He wants to come to Liverpool if he leaves PSG. But I can't say the same about Ibrahim MBAYE because I don't have the intel on it. Can we have the Anfield Agenda song now and again? I was wondering if you were going to notice a pattern. So I tend to play the Anfield Agenda song when something good's about to happen, or it's going to be a good news stream. So if you ever hear the Anfield Agenda song before the stream, that's your little hint. So I have seen the comments made beforehand, and I probably should have interacted with you about it beforehand. But yeah, that's the only reason, because that's my good mood music, you know. So when things are going well and we're having a good day and Liverpool are looking happy, that's when you'll hear the song. Craig, has MBAYE signed a 5-year deal? No, I think you're getting a little bit confused, Mark. Let me just give you what we're speaking about there with the 5-year deal. So Fabrice Hawkins and RMC Sport over in France have said Liverpool have reached an agreement with Ibrahim MBAYE. The two parties have agreed on the financial terms of a 5-year contract. MBAYE has made his choice and does not wish to pursue interests from Bayer Leverkusen. As exclusively revealed by RMC Sport, Liverpool want to sign both MBAYE and BARCOLA. And look, again, makes sense, right? But if we get MBAYE, I'd be absolutely certain at that point that we see Gakpo go. Because as much as I told you about the meetings that was taking place with McAllister's father in Liverpool and MBAYE's representative from Liverpool, I also told you guys that the other night, Richard Hughes, Cody Gakpo's agent, I think it's Rafael Pimenta if I'm not mistaken, although I am working off memory on that one, they had a meeting with Spurs officials in London as well. Now, I don't know what that meeting entailed. I don't know the ins and outs of it. But if they're meeting with Spurs officials and Richard Hughes is involved in it, well, you'd have to think that they're at least looking at what a deal might look like and a time frame if things go in the direction that Liverpool want. Do you think these signings block the path for Rio? No, not at all. No, because if you look, him and MBAYE are similar age profile. And then you have Victor Munoz, 23, Bradley BARCOLA, 23. So, no, I don't think it blocks any pathways. I think it gives us two good options on either side. One somewhat seasoned, if you want to say, at 23, and the other a really young prospect. Can we do a poll about whether we should start Gakpo and risk a sell with MBAYE possibly coming in? I don't think we should, because ultimately it's down to what gets us the result. That's the important thing here, is the 3 points. And that's the whole idea. And again, this isn't Andoni Iraola telling me that Gakpo's going to start. Just people that I've been speaking to think that that's the most likely outcome here. Because if it isn't him, who are we playing in the wide areas? Rio and Victor Munoz, perhaps. But, we might as well lean on our players while they're our players. So if Liverpool feel like Cody Gakpo can chip in and add something against Newcastle, I think it's fair enough for them to play him. David said, "Hey Craig, sounds like exciting days to come." Certainly. Look, I said this in the early video. I'm a bit reticent to say this over and over again, but the journalists have been told to be on standby. I don't know. They don't even really know what the extent of that is, but they've been told, be ready. I've seen the WhatsApps, I've seen the posts, I've seen the conversations as well. They've been told to be ready. So they're ready. But everybody is still just, looking at their watches, looking at their phones, looking at their computers. And I think the conversation jokingly around it all now is, who breaks the story? Who do we think is the first one out with it? I'm like, my money would be on either Paul Joyce or Romano. They'd be my two guesses to have the first on it. But Daniel, how are you? Said, "Hey all, Craig knows the stuff. Craig, if you're between 1 and 10, we get the two PSG lads, what number would you be feeling?" I find it really difficult to put a number on it because I don't have the intel. So I'm just guessing on the second part of it. But 7.5, maybe. The only sticking point I can see is if PSG play silly beggars over the price of MBAYE. Because I think it's fair to say at this point, we have an interest. I think it's been widely reported enough to say we have an interest. But I can only be honest and say the journalists that I speak to, they don't have anything as definitive on him. So they think it'll happen. I think David even spoke about it with Anfield Index. But yeah, to say it definitively, I'd be just misleading you. So I don't want to do that. But I think 7.5. I mean, I definitely think it's far more probable than improbable. So, but I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about the Gakpo situation in all honesty as well. Because whilst I understand the frustrations about certain aspects of Cody Gakpo's play, I can't get away from the fact that he is versatile, does score, does assist, and is a decent option. So yeah, I'm still working my way through that one mentally to figure out, because I don't know enough about MBAYE as a footballer to know whether he'd be even ready to come in and play. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I haven't watched enough of Ibrahim MBAYE to know what level he's at, whether he's ready to come in and realistically play 40, 45 games in a season for us yet or not. I don't know. There is news on MBAYE deal done. Again, I think you're slightly over-exaggerating what you mean by deal done. The talk about MBAYE is that Liverpool have agreed to deal with him on a 5-year contract. That's the stuff that was put out there from France tonight, from Fabrice Hawkins. As I say here now, I'm not aware of an agreement between PSG and Liverpool on the fee, but again, there is precedent for this because they've pretty much been negotiating a ballpark figure with Leverkusen, and that ballpark figure was somewhere between 40 and 50 million euro. So I really struggle to think they can turn around to Liverpool now and ask for, 20, 30 times more or percent more than that. That's the number. So that's why I'm guesstimating we see this in somewhere between 160, 170 million pound for both. But I am guessing on that, just based off, again, what they've been negotiating with Leverkusen. What's on? He said, that's why it's been a while. Exactly it, mate. Yeah, I kind of want you to know that when I play the song, it's a good news stream. Joel, thank you, mate. Appreciate you, Joel. Thank you. 195 Chrysler said, watching both the games yesterday, I have a question. Does the Liverpool commentator have to be positive in their comments about players? I couldn't believe my ears with some of their comments. So I didn't watch the first game. I've seen a few little bits of highlights of it, but I didn't watch it. And I especially didn't watch it after I seen it was 0-0. So, yes, I would imagine so. They are working for the club. So it is probably expected that they have to talk up what's there, yes. But like I always say, it doesn't mean we have to believe everything. And we all have eyes, and there are players who clearly aren't at the level. But I would imagine, yes, that they do have to talk positively because, again, it is the club's media. Craig, come on, say it. Arne Slot is deluded. Oh, deluded and a mahoosive spoofer as well. I mean, the levels of delusion that he went to last year were insane at times. If we sign BARCOLA and MBAYE, will Chiesa go as well as Gakpo? Chiesa could be Isak backup till Hugo's back. Love the stream, mate. So my expectation would be that Chiesa leaves. But again, you have to have a buyer. Dave O.C. Cop posted something earlier, and he said, speaking on SEO Deportivo's Valencia journalist, Fran Gualta said, Valencia have made official inquiries about players with a name like Federico Chiesa. I have the impression that they're looking for a high-quality game changer up top who can generate market buzz in the last week of August. So I don't think Chiesa has a future at Liverpool under Iraola. You can kind of get that hint from pre-season with the amount of minutes that he hasn't been getting. And yes, he has got some minutes, but again, it's usually garbage time minutes when he wants to get off the people whose legs are going. Same with Elliott. So if there's a willing buyer, yes, I think Chiesa's gone. And I think it's the right decision. You know, we did a poll on the channel last week and we asked, would you prefer Chiesa or Kumas? And I think it was like 71% Kumas, 29% Chiesa. And I was so relieved with that one because so many people, when they talk about Chiesa, and I love this about them, but so many people, when they talk about Chiesa, they talk about the Chiesa in his prime, when he was at Juventus, before he came in. And that's never been the Chiesa that's arrived at Liverpool. And now he's 2 years down the line with very limited football. So it's never made sense to me that he's going to really push on at Liverpool. So I think it is the right thing to do to move him on personally. But you have to have a willing buyer. Zishan said Chiesa, Elliott, Endo, Jones all need to go. Actually, it is weird with the Jones situation at the minute. Like, it feels like we're just waiting for Inter Milan to get the dough together. Because Curtis Jones didn't play the Monaco game. He didn't play the Como game. He was doing an individual program at the AXA. There wasn't even the line yesterday that he was still injured or at. And so, honestly, it does feel like Jones is going. And it feels like at this point, it is a matter of when, not if, for Curtis Jones. So, you know, I'll always have a bit of regret about this one because I'd love to know the ins and outs of why they didn't want to keep Jones around, why they couldn't agree a number with him or an agreement to keep him at the club. If it was purely about him wanting a guarantee of more playing time, then I would say the club are probably right because they shouldn't give him that because he's a squad player. But if it was a wage thing and he was being offered a really low wage versus, you know, what others in his position have been offered, then I'd have a bit more sympathy for Curtis. But ultimately, as fans, we're losing another local player. And whether you think he's good enough or not, it is always nice to have that local player, that local flavour inside the club. And we're losing that when he goes. So it will be a little bit sad to see him go if he does go. But I'd rather we do it now and get some money than lose him for free in a year. I think Jones has already done just being kept quiet. I think you're probably about right. Like, I think the expectation feels like it is going to be done. And maybe there even is an outline agreement with Inter, but they're just trying to figure out a sale or two. Like, I don't really know much about the situation, but we told you guys that he was in London in the Liverpool offices for a conversation. Then we've seen a plane that went over to Milan and back. We don't know if he was on that. Then we seen him left out, and now he's out again. And I said to you, I even mentioned the suitcase that he had down in London with him. It feels to me like he's got his mind made up, and he wants to go to Inter Milan, and it'll happen. If it doesn't happen, it could be awkward. And Liverpool are in a bit of a mess then, because then they're going to lose him for free and he can sign a pre-contract in January to go to Inter Milan at the end of next season. So I'd much rather we take the money now. But why we don't have a DM lined up isn't good enough. It's a piss take. And that has really frustrated me, because I kind of... I wouldn't say I got my hopes up, but when Wharton's name was being bandied around again, although I didn't have the intel on it, I certainly as a fan thought, okay, please, maybe this is going to happen now. Maybe we'll get him in at the end of the window. But, to hear David Lynn say that he's, basically not getting much joy around any conversation with a midfielder, it's frustrating, because we all know we need one. That meme guy said, in my opinion, you have to earn pay rise. And while Curtis is homegrown in Liverpool, we have to be honest, and Trainioni's ahead of him. Look, yeah, I've no problem with Jones with admitting he's not good enough. I think he's a good enough squad player, but he's not one. The phrase that I like to use is he's not going to move the needle. He's not going to be the difference between you winning something or not winning something. He's one of those players that, like Canada, won't lose any sleep if he goes, as long as they're replaced. And I'm happy for Trainioni to take Jones minutes as a fan. Brisbane Party said DM was not the problem. Respectfully, mate, I think it was one of the problems, but, if you would like to share what you think the problem was, we can certainly have a chat about it. It certainly was part of the problem. That and the defensive, I guess, frailties that we had. We were dropping off. We were inviting pressure on at times. And at least with Iriola, we're seeing us defending a higher line with more aggression. But I do think DM is a problem, because we don't have the balance right in midfield. And we tend to, excuse me, one sec. Let's look at yesterday's game, and let's just talk about one player. Let's talk about Florian Wirtz for a moment. Look at that situation yesterday. When he gave the ball away in the final third of the pitch, we were countered a few times. And the way that we play with the manager, we get bodies forward. When we attack in numbers. But you have to protect the ball. And if you've got situations where the likes of Wirtz is giving it away, whether it's trying to flick around the corner or trying to 1-2 or something, or even just a loose dribble, you're on your heels and gone. And that's why you need that defensive-minded player there to sniff out the danger. And we don't have one. So I do think DM is a problem for us and will continue to be a problem for us. But I'm not saying there isn't ways that you can find a balance to make it better. You said defence. Defence is part of it, yes. Absolutely, mate. No argument on that. The defence wasn't good enough last year. And we really, we haven't really solved the right-back situation. Now, if Jeremy Frimpong can up his levels, I thought Jeremy Frimpong played brilliantly yesterday. He was my man of the match. If he can repeat that and we can get Conor Bradley back, then that's certainly less of a headache. But the centre-backs, that was a really impressive cameo from both of them yesterday, and that certainly calmed my nerves down a lot. Ben said, Flo constantly puts passes 2 yards behind or ahead of people and misses them. He needs to tighten up his passing and have a bit more finesse. He definitely does. Because in that role, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to make things tick. You're supposed to unlock defences. But some of the things he was doing yesterday, like you said, simple passes. He'd do the hard part and then the pass would be a yard off, or he'd take too much out of the ball after doing the hard part. He just needs to quicken things up. The speed just needs to be a bit better. And it's almost like, and again, of course I'm guessing, but it's almost like, that super talented genius kid that gets bored and struggles because they're bored. And when they're challenged more and they're at a higher level, they come alive. Their brain starts firing. I wonder, it almost feels like that's the case with Wirtz. He's switching off for the simple stuff when, he's doing the hard stuff a lot of the time. Tiny Guard said, this is such an exciting time. Gemini is Liverpool's official consumer AI partner. Well, mate, I haven't been able to rest since that. Like I said in the video earlier on, that just rest. Never mind transfers, never mind DMs, never mind right backs, never mind league positions. We have an official consumer AI partner that we didn't know we needed yesterday. But there you go. Yeah, we have an official AI partner, whatever the fuck that means. But if it puts more money in the club's coffers, brilliant. Well done, Google. Well done, Gemini. Well done, everybody. But can our official consumer AI partner sort out a DM for us? That'd be lovely as well, wouldn't it? Extreme Soldier, thank you, mate, for 5 months with us as a member as well. Absolute legend. Said, if I'd keep Gakpo, get Barcola and Mbaye, sell Endo and Chiesa. You're just not going to recoup enough money, though. And I think that is the problem. As fans, we probably agree with your statement. But knowing the football club and the way it operates, they're going to want the 70 million quid in. Because what are you going to get for Chiesa and Endo, in all honesty? Between the pair of them, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say be lucky to get 25 million. So, that's a 45 million differential there. So that's why I keep saying to you, there will be one sale this summer that at least underwrites some of the other purchases. There's something. Oh, yeah, I wanted to just alert you guys to something. So I was reading through the comments yesterday after the watch along. We did the match reaction. And in the match reaction, somebody said that they prefer the recorded match reactions because it covers everything. And I'm not going off on tangents or dipping into the chat. So I had a conversation with Connor about that today, and obviously always take your feedback on board. So I think what we're going to do for the live match reactions going forward is the first 10 minutes of it, I won't be interacting with anybody. It'll just be me talking about the game, giving you the information about it. And then people who only want to see that part of it or only want to watch it back later can just do it in that section. And we'll clip it up and put it onto the clips channel as well. So I did listen to the feedback. It was a very good suggestion and a good idea. So yeah, that's probably what we're going to do for the match reactions going forward. It'll still be live, but the first 10 minutes or so, there won't be any interaction. It'll just be me giving you my take on the game. Somebody in the chat earlier on said something about Alan Varela of Porto. I've seen them in the chat saying we should look at him. We did look at him, and we were linked with him, was it last summer? Or the January window before that, perhaps? We were linked and there was a whole, are we over in Portugal having a conversation thing? But I've never heard anything since that. His name came up. It was kind of rebuffed from Liverpool side, but yeah, since then I haven't heard anything about him. Dave, I'm sorry to hear you're in pain, bro. Sorry to hear you're in pain, my man. I hope it eases up for you, Dave. Can Leone be our 6 by Cecic being sold? I don't know what's happening with Cecic because I don't think he's fit yet. So he's had no pre-season. So I think the idea of loaning him out, he'll have to be at a club that doesn't expect somebody to start straight away. And then he's got into the last year of his deal now. So I have no idea what to expect from Cecic. Can Leone be our 6? Yes, but not yet. And that's the fairest I'd be about it. I love Trey Leone and I do think he'll be a big part of the team, but the DM position is one that I need a bit more experience in. And I don't think Trey's ready yet. Could you put him in there against Barcelona with Rodri on the other side? I don't think so. Not at this point. But he'll get there. That's why I say we need somebody. But that's okay because you can have 2. Most teams that use a DM do have 2. And one of them being young, absolutely no problem. But to put him in and expect him to be straight at that level, I just think it's not the right way to look after a young player. It's not the right way to progress him. Right, so are you confident that we sign both Barcola and MBAYE? We have 77% people say yes, and 23% of people say no. I'd be in the 77% for what it's worth. I'd certainly feel confident that we get both, although I don't have the intel on the MBAYE part. Leon Goretzka on a free is a quality 6. I've been through the Goretzka things a few times, and obviously I know you probably don't watch every bit of every video, mate, but it's the wages. It's just there would be no value in that deal for Liverpool. It would be I remember Melissa Reddy talking about him when I think he was at Schalke, if my memory's right, before he went to Bayern, and he was looking at 300 grand a week at that point. Now throw in all the experience that he has on a free contract. It's just not a deal that I think Liverpool will get involved in. And again, there's not growth in that for Liverpool. There's no future there, really. Craig, do you think FSG walk away in 12 months' time? So I don't know if the answer I'm going to give you is think or hope, but yes, I do. It will depend on one factor now, one factor only. Does the Jeff Bezos, Ahmed Bhatia, Eduardo Saverin consortium want to trigger the option? Because again, the option is on them to trigger, but at a very specific valuation. So the valuation of the football club for the investment that they put in, it's about $6 billion. But the language in the contract, as reported by CNBC in America and then The Athletic and others, the option that they have is in 12 months, they can take a controlling share in the club. Now, it doesn't have to be a full buyout. It could be 51%. But they can take a controlling share at a pre-agreed valuation of $8 billion. So it would be a higher valuation, but it is on them to decide. And I guess if you're FSG, you probably agreed with that because that's probably the upper end of where you think the value is going to be, even if it grows. So I think yes. That would be my guess here, because you don't come in, one, with the amount they have to be passive. Two, why put that clause in there if that isn't part of your intention? There's no need to negotiate it in. So I'd have to think one of two things happens. Either they do it at the agreed number, or they look to renegotiate at the time at a different valuation, maybe changing a couple of other details or something. Danny, how are you, my man? 21 months as a member as well, Danny. Really appreciate you, bro. Said, any predictions for top four and relegation? So relegation, I'm going to be lazy and say pretty much the teams that came back up or came up or go back down. And top four, Liverpool, in no order, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal. That's my best guess at top four. If you want me to put it into order, I'm going to go against the grain a little bit here. I'm going to go Arsenal to win it, Chelsea second, Liverpool third, City fourth. I have a sneaking feeling Chelsea, because they only have one game a week and have the manager they have, the squad they're building, and maybe getting rid of Todd Bowley as well, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I just think they could be a bit of a surprise package in the league this year. So I see them in the top four. But you can absolutely sit here and go, Craig, what about Manchester United? Craig, what about Spurs? Craig, what about Aston Villa? All credible. I think it's really difficult to gauge and guess at this point, because one, we don't know the impact of the new coaches at the new clubs. We don't know the impact of the signings. We haven't yet seen the full transfer window, and we don't know what the final squads are going to look like. But that's roughly where my head's at with it. But again, like I said, you could absolutely say, Craig, take out one team, put in Man United. Craig, take out another team, put in Villa. Absolutely. And also, if you're a Man City fan, if you were one of the five of them, would you be worried about the Community Shield? Would you be overly worried? Like, has Maresca got a problem, or is this teething problems and he didn't really give a fuck? And then, because Rodri's a big loss, and Elliot Anderson's a good player, but he ain't Rodri. And Rodri, as a fan, a Liverpool fan, I'm delighted we got rid of Rodri out of the Premier League and we don't have to play against him, because he's brilliant. Without a doubt, the best midfielder in the world for me at this stage. Even at 30, even coming back from the ACL, he was brilliant in the World Cup. And I think getting rid of him, that's going to be big. And I know Guardiola as well, obviously. So you've got a new coach in there. They're going to have the same fear factor, the same aura about them when you come up against them. And of course, Arsenal beat them comfortably, but it was the Community Shield. So it's really tough to know. Well, let's talk about Chelsea for a minute, because the Financial Times have said that Todd Bowley and Mark Walter are in talks to sell Chelsea ownership stakes to Clearlake Capital, which is, potentially big news in the Premier League if Bowley's getting out of it as well. We'll be back to having formations that we can all understand. But yeah, that came out this evening. Todd Bowley and Mark Walter are in talks to sell their Chelsea ownership stakes to Clearlake Capital. Right, I want to just check through my notes so I don't miss stuff. 1 second. Okay. Couple of fixture changes as well, just to make you aware of. 2 Liverpool Premier League fixtures have been moved for television coverage. Manchester City at Anfield will now be Sunday, October the 11th at a 4:30 kickoff, just in case you're thinking of going to the games or you have travel or hotel booked. So Manchester City is now going to be at home at Anfield, is now going to be Sunday, October the 11th, 4:30. Arsenal at Anfield is now going to be Sunday, November the 1st at 4:30. So 2 fixture changes confirmed there today. I still haven't got any clarity around this report from earlier on. So there was an outlet in France that the Echo picked up on, and let me just read this out to you exactly as it's written. So they said, Reds submit improved BARCOLA bid. After Bradley BARCOLA was left out of PSG's French Super Cup squad, Liverpool have allegedly submitted an improved offer for the winger. Foot01 reported on Monday morning that the Reds tabled an upgraded offer worth roughly £115 million. That's still some way short of their £145 million valuation that Liverpool are purportedly being told to pay. However, all signs suggest there is positive movement trending towards Andoni Iraola landing the biggest target of the summer transfer window. And the reason it jumped off the page to me is I mentioned 115 million a while back. Now, at the time, the 150 million, as it was being mentioned to me, was being talked about like that's the number. But it is a number that keeps coming up, even if it's the down, like upfront number. It's a number that won't go away. So when I seen that report earlier on and the Echo ran with it, it kind of, I think that's in and around what we'll see. So I do think, yes, like I said, I'm 99% on BARCOLA at this point. It is, you know, when you've got language being used like Dave, and I want to, again, make sure I quote him correctly, because you can watch this clip for yourself. It's about 9 minutes in to the latest Media Matters show on Anfield Index with Dave Davies talking about with David Lynch, and he said about 9 minutes into the conversation, I wouldn't be surprised if the next bit of news we hear around that situation, BARCOLA to Liverpool, is deal done. That's how confident he is in it as a journalist as well. So, you know, I don't know anything else. We've heard this for the last 3 weeks, though. How much closer can it get? So let me just push back a little bit without being an asshole. You've heard it for the last 3 weeks. Fair enough. Has it been called off yet? Has the deal not been done? Is it off the table? I can't control, mate, respectfully, I can't control the time frame of it. And I get it. I totally understand the frustration. I'm with you on that. But look at it logically. We're talking about a 120 million pound transaction. That is a huge sum of money with a very complicated set of financials around it and contracts to be sorted out. And agreements and homegrown places versus non-homegrown. So many simple things that we just don't think about. So I understand the frustration. But ultimately, what we should want as fans is a couple of things. We want a player in, of course we do. And we want a player as early as possible. But I'd like to think we also want Liverpool to get the best deal they can. And if it's delayed and Liverpool end up saving 15 or 20 million pounds that they can then put towards another defender or something in the future, great. But that's all I can, and I don't want to be a dick because I don't want to come on, I don't want to push back at you and say it'll be done when it's done, because I get it. I totally understand where you're coming from. But impatience isn't my problem. Respectfully, it isn't. You know, and I get it. It was the same last summer. Wirtz, Isak, they dragged on and on and on, but they happened. And ultimately, we'll be talking about this in a month's time, and we won't remember the wait too much, but we'll know we have the player in. So that's the fairest I can be on it, my man. After that, I get it. I can't make it go any quicker because we're all frustrated. Like Everyone else, I want Iriola to have to play as soon as possible. But I also want Liverpool to get the best possible deal for the club. Because if I feel like, if I'm being blunt about it, I already think we're overpaying. Like I said to you at the very start of the summer, bluntly, I think BARCOLA is an 80 to 90 million pound player. That's where I think he's at. That's what I think is a fair value. But we're going to have to pay more, and I don't want us to pay extortionately more. I don't want us to get near the top end of their valuation. So if it takes a bit longer and gets the price down, ultimately it'll be worth it. Now, if it all falls apart, which it won't, but if it does, then of course that's a different conversation to have with how the fuck did we get here. Please, Craig, I'll be excited to see Wharton in Liverpool this season. As would I, Fabian, mate, as would I. And I don't have anything on it, but I read out a quote earlier on from David Lynch when he was speaking on Anfield Index. And again, I'll read it out because I don't like to misquote people. He said, and this, again, you can watch this yourself. He said, I had a conversation this morning, and I think the way it was phrased to me, there is close to 0% chance of a midfielder being signed, even in the event of Curtis Jones leaving. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It just means that the information that David's hearing and getting from his sources at the club aren't suggesting a midfielder's likely. But journalists have been told these things before, and other things have happened. You know, James Pearce was telling us that Liverpool had no interest in looking at a goalkeeper, where we all knew that we were very close to bringing in Georgie Marmadash-Vili. So honestly, I don't know on this one because I don't have any intel on it. We know a couple of things. We know Wharton has been of interest to Liverpool in the past. We know Wharton is an up-and-coming homegrown midfielder that would make sense to us. But I don't know, mate. I mean, all I can say is I agree. I'd like him. We need somebody in that position. And I think it's going to cost us when we don't do it. But it's not looking likely at this moment in time, unfortunately. And that's all I can say. Like, I could tease it out, blow smoke up your arse and say it's possible, but I don't want to get my own hopes up either. Because, you know, if we go back to the very start of the window, we talked about the areas that we need to address. Centre-back, right-back, DM, and a couple of forwards. We've got Munoz in, so one more forward was okay for me. And if it's going to be two because Gakpo's leaving again, that's okay. We've got in a centre-back, albeit a bit of a stick and plaster signing, but still a credible one, so I'm okay with that. No DM, though. I just struggle to see how rationally we don't think we're going to have issues if we don't bring in a DM. It just doesn't feel right. Unless there's some grand plan at play here that we're just not aware of for the longer term. What I mean by that is the club obviously really, really backed themselves to bring in Xhaka, and obviously felt like at the money they were willing to take the hit last season to get Xhaka because he's the one that they thought was better. And you have to say, he looks pretty fucking good. Now, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have got a centre-back in, but if the club had something up their sleeve, or the club have a target for a specific time that they think might not be available to next summer, I don't know. But that's all I can think of, because I can't believe logically they look at it and don't think we need somebody there. You know, anybody who talks about football, writes about football, has even a cursory understanding of Liverpool will say we need somebody in that position. Who do we play if Isak gets injured? A little confused, could unravel us, or concerned. My guess would be that either BARCOLA plays centrally or Munoz plays centrally, or we play with a false nine. So if you look at PSG, right, and look at PSG, the majority of the time that they played, they had Ousmane Dembele through the centre a lot of the time, and they had Kvaratskhelia on one side and Doué on the other side. Now, none of us would think of Ousmane Dembele as a centre forward, but it worked for PSG. Now, they have gone out and brought in Ferran Torres, and they did have Gonzalo Ramos, but he just wasn't cutting the mustard. So that's all I can think of, is that maybe one of the pacey wide players will play through the middle, if that happens. And I kind of think it's right not to bring in another striker, because if we were to bring in a striker worth any kind of note, what happens in 6 months' time? Because we have £200 million worth of strikers at the football club, which is almost an abundance of riches if you think about it. Now, of course, we have an injury, and that's not great, and it's frustrating. But it's a short-term issue that I don't think logically needs a long-term solution. That's just my take on it, though. But I understand the nerve because, of course, you'd be nervous about Isak's fitness. That's perfectly understandable. Yo Tom said, Craig, hope you're well. Already loving Jeremy and Araujo. Yeah, I was so impressed with Jeremy Jacquet yesterday, mate. Like I didn't know what to expect when we signed him because I didn't know much about him. But you know, based on the 45 minutes we seen yesterday, there were a lot of good signs there. Except that, you know, simple things. His understanding of where to be, his dialogue with the team and players around him, his ability to get it. Like, I was shocked to see it was him on the end of that Gakpo cross in and not Isak. Lots of stuff. But in a weird way, I almost took more pleasure in Araujo's performance because everybody expects him to fail from the other side. Remember when we agreed to deal for Ronald Araujo? Barcelona fans were celebrating it. Like they'd gotten rid of, I don't know, somebody who they hate and isn't very good. And I just hope that he's coming in wanting to prove a point. Because him on form, with his head in the right place, he's a damn good defender. And I think if he comes in with the right attitude this season, it'll be good for us. And he certainly looked yesterday like he's getting there. So I was really impressed by that yesterday. And that really has put to bed some of my fears that I had for the season around the centre-back situation. Sorry, Honest Watch Reviews. I meant to read this out earlier and get back to you, mate. Sorry. You said, do you have any idea when Dan's will be back from injury? Do you think he could possibly be a backup for Isak if Hugo's fit? I don't think he's far away, but the club are being cautious with it. But taking into account that he haven't had a pre-season, I'll try and find out if there's any chance of a loan there or what's happening. But the truth is, I couldn't say with any level of confidence at the minute other than, you know, he had a setback again and he didn't get a pre-season, which is unfortunate. And there's a few players this summer who could have done with that. Bajcetic could have done with the pre-season. Dan's could have done with the pre-season, but unfortunately it didn't happen. Shane said 5 days till the season starts. BARCOLA deal is a farce. Fair enough. You're entitled to your opinion, Shane, and I'm not. I don't know what else to say, mate. You know, I don't want to. I kind of agree with you, so I don't know what else to say. You know, I want it done as soon as possible as a Liverpool fan as well. Our recruitment hasn't been good enough. Everything's too slow, but sometimes I can't win because when I come out halfway through the window or earlier in the window when I say these things, people tell me to calm down, there's plenty of time left. But, you know, it's no good me being right and people saying, oh, you were right when it's too late. That's why I said, be vocal, be on social media, have your say, make sure it's known. Because they're getting away with it. They've been coasting, mate, for too many windows and getting away with failures. It's not been good enough. So, I get your frustration on it, but I can't really add any more to it, Shano, other than that, mate. And again, thank you for so much time with us as a member. Yeah, it is. It isn't great. I get it. Woody Woodburn, thank you for becoming a member as well, bro. Chad said, hey, Craig, what did you think of the match yesterday? Or is Arsenal that good or is City going to struggle? I only watched about 45 minutes all in of the Arsenal game, half hour of the first half and about 15 minutes of the second. Look, if it was Liverpool and we were on the end of a 3-0 beating like that, it wouldn't give me problems for the season ahead. I don't really take the Community Shield seriously because I don't treat it as a real trophy and it's usually just the last game of pre-season. But you have to acknowledge that there's no Guardiola, so City are an unknown quantity. Are Arsenal that good? They're good. They are good. Like, you don't win the league title and get to a Champions League final without having something about you. But some of the rule changes that are coming in, actually, I want to fly through these real quick because I cover them in more detail in the late night video. But there are new laws coming in to the Premier League. So if we go, it's some of them you will have heard from the World Cup and that, but they've now been brought into the Prem. If a goalkeeper is treated for an injury, one of his teammates must leave the pitch for 1 minute. Managers have just 10 seconds to nominate who that player will be. Referees will enhance recognition of clear holding actions that have clear material impact. So if there's holding in a corner and they're not even looking for the ball, in theory, they're supposed to be calling these. Players treated on the pitch will need to go off for a minute, an increase from 30 seconds. So if you get treated on the pitch and it isn't a yellow card or a red card challenge, then you have to go off for a minute instead of just 30 seconds. 5-second countdown for throw-ins and goal kicks, where again, if the goal kick isn't taken, a corner can be awarded. If a throw-in isn't taken, the corner or the throw-in can be overturned and given to the other team. And substitutes have just 10 seconds to leave the pitch as well. So there are some of the things that we'd seen at the World Cup that are now going to be brought into the Premier League. Amy said, MBAYE agrees 5-year deal. Is this real? Yes, but it doesn't mean that we've agreed to deal with PSG. So the report from France said that he's agreed to deal with Liverpool on a 5-year contract. But nobody has said yet that Liverpool and Paris Saint-Germain have agreed to move. And that's the part that everyone's waiting on. So a very respectable French accountant journalist has said that the player side of it's done and he only wants Liverpool. But there's nobody to say that the deal's been agreed yet with Paris Saint-Germain. So Arsenal had to play more than 20 minutes of football. That's exactly why when Chad made his comment, that's straight away came up to my head about Arsenal, and then I started thinking about all the time wasting and all the shenanigans, like David Raya suddenly having 3 injuries in a game and whatnot. Yeah, I hope Arsenal don't get away with some of the time wasting or momentum building nonsense that they got away with last year. Would you take Vardy on a 1-year deal to cover in rotation? No. But mostly because I don't like Jamie Vardy. Yeah, I don't want him and his mess anywhere near Liverpool, but he was a good player back in the day, and you know his story's certainly an inspiring one to never give up and work your way up. But no, I'd rather we just gave the minutes to Will Wright or somebody. I don't like stick and plaster solutions. And if we were going to go for the big stick and plaster solution, the answer probably would have been Lewandowski. If you wanted to go and get somebody for a year, you could have looked at Lewandowski before he went to Chicago. Mr. A. Santino said Araujo might be a good signing due to his versatility. Love Munoz, speed, and you see MBAYE and BARCOLA. It's great. Just get the ball to Isak and Ekitike. Exactly. So in a weird way, I think most of the pressure this year is on Isak and Wirtz for me. Because if BARCOLA comes in and MBAYE came in, as a fan, instinctively, I'm giving them time to settle in. But I'm kind of running out of, I don't want to say patience, but there's not much more wiggle room left for Isak and Wirtz now. They've got to start showing why Liverpool paid what they paid for them. And there's no excuses. Salah's not there. These guys need to step up now. And there's no, you were 116 and 125 million pound. Time to start repaying that. And this season they have to step up. Carbon said, to be honest with you, Craig, I think Liverpool is good for now. I like what I've seen from the players with more playing time and to know each other. It will be a bit better. I think we'll be good. I think we're short, mate. I think we're still short of bodies, and it's very well and good looking good in pre-season in certain parts. But again, look at the opposition level and then look at what we're going to be playing against. I think it's too easy to get drawn into fallacies of thinking we're good. Ultimately, it's going to be another long, hard, grueling season where some of the players will have been at a World Cup, had a minimal break. The intensity of football we're going to play is higher. It's just, I can only see injuries and I can only see problems if we don't build out the squad a bit, and it doesn't look like we're going to. So yes, getting MBAYE and BARCOLA in will be great, but I still think we don't have a deep enough squad to really challenge in the Premier League. Derek said, I think the owners have gaslit the manager when signing him and could backfire on him because could harm his CV if he does bad this season. Next season could be worse. And he signed a 2-year deal. So when he signed the 2-year deal, all the conversation and talk was, of course, about him wanting to show, that he belongs here and that he's good enough and all. But it works both ways. If you're not giving the manager the tools to do his job, it'd be fair for him to say as well, well, I'm not fucking sticking around here if I'm not getting what I need. Because you are at Liverpool Football Club. It's one thing saying to him at Bournemouth or Rayo Vallecano or wherever that, we have to sell players, or we have to do this, we have to bring in money. You're at Liverpool. The manager's out there and he's looking at Chelsea's squad and he's looking at Arsenal's squad and he's saying Manchester City are out there doing huge deals as well. So, I'm definitely angry at the owners again and the recruitment because it hasn't been good enough for loads of reasons, the time frames and the amount of players that we still need. Who do you want to play in the Champions League this season? I'm at Anfield Booze for Trent and Canada and we win. Who do I want to play? I think if we did play Real Madrid again in the Champions League, I think I'm right in saying it would have to be away. I think I've got a recollection of that you can't play the same team at home 3 years in a row. So forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but I think it would have to be away in the league phase. And if you get them in the knockouts, of course, it's different. Who would I want to play? I wouldn't mind getting PSG, but I don't think we can. We can. I wouldn't mind getting PSG. I wouldn't mind getting a little look at them earlier in the Champions League as well, just to kind of measure ourselves. They're a pot 1 team as well, obviously. And I think we can get another pot 1 team, or is it 2 pot 1 teams, 2 pot 2, 2 pot 3, 2 pot 4. Who else would you like? You always want one of the Spanish teams for a bit of fun as well. Barca would be nice. We haven't played them in a while. Then into the lower tiers, it's always handy. You want less travel as well for the away games. There's a few things to look at. You don't want the lads to be travelling too far, so you'd hopefully get as few Eastern European side teams as possible where the flights are more reasonable. I don't know. I'm still not sure how I feel about the new format of the Champions League. It all feels a bit weird to go through all these games to get to the point where only a handful of teams are eliminated. I want to just ask a question about Gakpo. So I want to ask, is selling Gakpo the right move? Because whether you think he's good enough or not, he's experienced, he's an international player, and he chips in with goals and assists. And what it boils down to for me is we're basically going to sell Cody to bring in Ibrahim MBAYE if that happens. So it's a straight question for me in my mind of, is that smart? Because you kind of know what you get with Cody. You get versatility, goals and assists, but MBAYE, it's a project, is what I'm basically saying. And I could be more nervous about this because I'm not well enough informed on what level MBAYE is at yet. But it feels very much a financial driven decision rather than what's best for the squad, if that makes sense. Because gentleman earlier on said, be better if we sold Chiesa and Endo or something like that. And the fan in me agrees. But the pragmatist in me that knows the owners and the way that they'll want to recoup money kind of feels like this is the necessary evil to get those 2 deals in. But I don't think it's the best planning for the squad. Because if we're being logical about it, we're already talking about who we might need to play central. Well, Cody can do that at a pinch. And we're giving away somebody who is Premier League proven, is an established international, to get a project player who has a very high ceiling. I just wonder, is it a little bit too rushed? Could you have maybe kept Cody for another year, see how MBAYE settles in? Or maybe I'm just being wrong. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. And Simon said, why sell him? No, it wasn't Simon, it was David. Said, why sell him to Spurs, strengthen an opponent? The answer is probably because they're the only ones who'd pay the money. that would tempt Liverpool. I agree with you. Ideally, if you are selling a player, you want to sell them outside the league. Or if you're selling them in the league, sell them lower down the league. But Spurs putting Tonali, Fernandes, yeah, they're seriously looking to get back up that league table. And yeah, it is interesting. Actually, on that, let's talk about Cody Gakpo. There was a report came out this evening. 1 second. I want to read this one out. So, I don't even know how to pronounce this name, but it's a Dutch journalist pronounced Jus Blahuth, said, what I think they, Spurs, made a project with Cody Gakpo that he's going to be the striker up there, combined with a big contract, a longer contract from London, where it's easy to get a 1 hour flight. You're back home flying to Eindhoven, where he's supposed to live. I think that's made him think about that step, where maybe at the club, where they like him a little bit more. I think Liverpool, I don't think it's the case that Liverpool fans don't like him, but they maybe expect a bit more from a winger. What is it about these Dutch lads wanting to go home all the time, by the way? That's the first thing I thought of when I read that piece out, was so we want a 1 hour flight back home. I don't know. It feels weird. Matthew said, not going to lie, Cody's won me over this pre-season. Sorry, I'll read that one in a second. See, I was never as turned off by other people last year, because I said so many times throughout the year, yes, it was disappointing, so was the rest of the team, but I think people started to expect things of Cody Gakpo because we lost Diaz. And I think a lot of that frustration came from the point of view of, we don't have that Diaz-esque type player, and Cody came in for the brunt of it. That's the way I think about it anyway. Greg said, sell Cody, Mac, Jones to pay for Wharton, Bajcetic and Bay. But it wouldn't, or BARCOLA, it wouldn't even get close to pay for it. So Cody, let's say 70. McAllister, nobody wants to buy. So can't sell him if nobody wants to put the money down. And that is where we're at, Greg. Because I feel pretty confident to say if an offer came in for him, Liverpool would have taken it. If it was an offer that he was open to. But it didn't. So we can't sell a player who there isn't a buying club, and there isn't. Especially not at the level, like if you said, okay, you can have Maka for 40, 50 million quid, maybe, yes. But Liverpool will be wanting 70 to 80 probably for that player, and there's nobody out there looking to bring him in. Charlie said, it's the same as Diaz leaving, Gakpo is solid. And that's it. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'd like us to have brought in MBAYE, got rid of Chiesa, got rid of Endo, got rid of a few others, got rid of Elliott. And rather than having to hope it all works out, just kind of mitigate the risk a little bit. That's what I would say. But then again, that's a fan-led, idealistic version. Trav said, Gakpo will get the odd goal and assist, but he's got zero intelligence in the final third, lacks composure and makes wrong decisions. Get rid. I mean, thank you for your opinion. Respect the fact that you've shared it, mate. Thank you. I think a little bit more than the odd goal and assist now, to be fair, but he is limited. I don't disagree with you on that. He is limited in what he can do, but I don't know. I guess we're going to find out if it's the right decision soon enough by the looks of it. But again, thank you, Trav, for sharing your views, mate. We don't always all have to agree on everything, but I appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts. I think Iriola prefers pace, and that's why we're selling Gakpo. I think, anyway, if you keep him, you're not backing the manager's decision. Well, we definitely need pace, and he wants versatility, and he wants wingers that can play on both sides. So that much I definitely agree with Calder. He does want pace, and that was one of the attributes that we all said we needed to get in, and that's what BARCOLA brings. Like, what has actually surprised me about this a lot is there's been a fair amount of people that just don't want BARCOLA. I was reading so many comments today from people who just flat out don't want him. Doesn't matter what the number is, they just don't think he's good enough. Mark said, defences know how to defend against Gakpo. He's too predictable. Plus, he hasn't got the pace that the gaffer wants down the left side. So there's pros and cons to every player, Mark. And with Cody, I would say that his tactical intelligence is really high. He does have strong attributes physically, and he does chip in with goals and assists. He's somewhat limited in his versatility in the way that he attacks in his direct running. I probably agree that he doesn't have the pace needed, although he isn't a slouch. So ultimately, I get it. But I just feel like I think we're doing it for money rather than doing it for the best thing for the squad, if that makes any sense. I think this decision to sell Gakpo is being led by recouping money rather than it being the best thing for the squad. Do you think Cody can play the 10 for Wirtz? Oh, Jesus, no. God, no. If you're sorry, I was just blunt with that one, mate. Sorry. Yeah, if Wirtz isn't playing the 10, I think for me, Szoboszlai, maybe McAllister, but certainly Szoboszlai would be the one I would be moving forward. Like, if Wirtz was suspended, I'd say probably look at Gravenberch, McAllister with Szoboszlai further forward. That would be my guess. Doglink said, Craig, if Iriola succeeds at Liverpool, which current player is most likely to become the symbol of the new era? Oh, that's a belter of a question. I'm going to say Szoboszlai or BARCOLA for me. One of those two. I hope we're talking about Wirtz. I hope we're talking about Isak. But I think Szoboszlai really he just feels like he's grown into it. And, he's now a leader, a proper leader. So I'm going to say him or BARCOLA. Because if BARCOLA works in the way that everybody hopes, it could be super exciting. So this apparently coming in from Le Parisien said, breaking, Paris Saint-Germain could be open to an offer below 150 million euro for Bradley Barcola. The two clubs have planned to return to the negotiating table this week to bring their positions closer together. So there hasn't been anything out there today that hasn't hinted towards Barcola coming to Liverpool. Some people just say it bluntly. Some people are intimating it. But even the friend side of this now are putting it out there like this one's going to happen. Again, I've been so confident on it all the way through for good reason. And that's, I do think that's where this one ultimately ends up. This from Fabrizio Romano about Curtis Jones. And of course, you can find all of this on the Anfield Agenda X account as well if you want to have a look on there. But Inter are preparing a new bid for Curtis Jones as he remains the top target in midfield since January. More contacts will take place soon as Inter spoke to his camp again, and the new bid is not linked to any other exit. All depends on club-to-club agreement with Liverpool. So there you are. Like we said, it felt like that was the direction of travel for Jones, but until Inter put the money on the table, Liverpool are going to want to stick to their valuation. But it feels like he wants to move, and whether Liverpool want to admit this or not, we are somewhat backed into a corner on it. And that's one thing you won't hear many people talking about, but we kind of are. Like, Liverpool, if I'm Inter Milan, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, Liverpool can say what they want, in all honesty, because he doesn't want to stay there, and we either get him now or we get him in a year. But we get him. And we have time. But do Liverpool? Because they won't extend him, they won't renew him. And are they really going to rip up 30 million quid over 5 million quid versus getting nothing? So whether we want to admit this as a club or not, our contractual faux pas have put us into this position. So the leverage in this conversation is very much with Inter Milan for me, not with Liverpool. So you've got a player who wants to go, a contract that's running down and now has, 11 months to go on it. He can sign a pre-contract agreement in January to go there next summer. So I think it's just all bluff from Liverpool, and they just want to get as much as they can. But ultimately, they will have to drop their valuation a little bit because they know they can lose them for nothing. Somebody else said this. Ken said, you got to also take into account what Cody wants. He doesn't want to be a bench player for Barcola. Absolutely, Ken. I said this. I said this even before the BARCOLA stuff came around. When Rio started to break through, straight away then Cody Gakpo knows one thing. He's the future. So at the time where Salah was still on the right and we were talking about Rio coming in against Cody on the left, Cody's not stupid. He knows that that's the future. And he rightly thinks, I'm a player in my prime. I should be playing every week. So absolutely, you're right, Ken. It is important what the player wants as well. And looking at it through his eyes, that's the way I would see it. Liverpool are planning for the future without me here. And my minutes are going to probably only go in one direction at Liverpool this season. I might start playing at the start of the season, but as Rio comes into it more and more, those minutes are likely to go down. Ian, it's my birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, Eno. Happy birthday, my man. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm off up to Dundrum tomorrow with my son. So I won't be doing the afternoon video tomorrow. Connor will be doing it. I should be back for the late night agenda stream. I just have to go up to Dundrum with the young lad to get him a few bits in the shopping centre that he needs for school and new trainers and whatnot. Craig, you were saying earlier you don't like stick and plaster solutions. Do you not think the deal for Araujo is one? I know there's an option, but I don't like big names, big teams doing loan moves. So here's my hope on that one. And fair play for bringing that up, Chris. And I don't know this to be a fact, so don't take it as it, but my inkling, and it was suggested by ITK Space as well, I have to wonder, are we going to move for Nico Schlotterbeck? And if he hadn't picked up an injury at the World Cup, would that have been the play this summer? Now, and it's a bit of a leap of faith here, but if we can say, yeah, that's it, maybe that's why. Maybe Liverpool think, right, we get Araujo in now, and we go for Schlotterbeck next summer. But again, it is a leap of faith, but it's the only thing I can think of that would make sense, But we do have the option there on Araujo as well. But, that's where my thinking's at with it, Chris. But then again, that's me giving the club the benefit of the doubt again of doing the right thing, right? And there's a lot of times I've given the club the benefit of the doubt where they've just not done it. So, yeah, that's the logical play here for me, but let's wait and see. Because Virgil's going to be gone, so you need a leader. And I don't think, no matter how good you are, at 21 or 22 or 19, you're ready to lead the defence. So that's why I think we need somebody in the 25 to 28 bracket. And if it isn't going to be Araujo, then it may be Nico Schlotterbeck. I hope. Thoughts on this, Craig? BARCOLA will be the best winger in the league. I think he'll be a superstar for us. I think it's absolutely possible. Who knows how he settles in and how he starts, but he definitely has the attributes to be a superstar. And we're getting somebody who's won the Champions League twice, been at the World Cup with France, isn't going to be phased playing on the biggest level. I think with an arm around his shoulder and a bit of love from the Liverpool fans, I think he'll absolutely thrive and enjoy his time at Liverpool as well. I still have the same concerns I always had, which is his finishing, but that can be improved upon. But yeah, he's got, who else is in the Premier League that would be a better left winger? Really? Looking around it, you could maybe put some debate up, but I think he definitely has the potential to go where you're going with it. Should we put a buyback clause in for Curtis? I would say no, because it's pretty clear Liverpool don't want to keep him. If we wanted to keep Curtis or even thought that he might get to the level, maybe. But Liverpool clearly don't want to pay him or don't think he's going to ever establish himself properly as a first 11 player. So I don't think there's a need for it with Curtis Jones, but I also wouldn't be angry if it was put in either, because you always want your club to cover as many bases as possible. Roger said, I have a feeling that we get a here we go before lunchtime tomorrow on both players from our new feeder club. Well, if we get a here we go tomorrow, my son's getting an excuse. if we get a here we go before we leave here to go up to Dundrum, then I'll be waving my son and my wife off on their trip to Dundrum while I'm in the office here talking about the here we goes. Yeah. So I hope you're right, Roger, but I don't know. Like I said, the journalists have been told to be ready. So let's wait and see. Berkeley Jones. Hey Craig, hope your doctor's appointment went well, mate. Oh, no, it didn't. No, I got really bad news. In all honesty, I don't really want to go into it too much, but she said to me, we've got the results of your test back and you're too charming. And the machismo's just off the charts, Craig, and we don't know what to do about it. So ultimately sat down, talked with the doctor, and the best thing that she said for me is just to continue kicking ass on YouTube and, trying to release that machismo out into the world at with a human levels. No, it was all good, thank you. It was just checking in on the weight and stuff from the Wegovy injections, checking in on the blood pressure, and all good, all going in the right direction. I'm down about just under 17 kilos now, so yeah, going good, feeling better. It was nothing to be concerned about. All good. Thank you for asking though. Sorry, I was being a shit house there, but yeah, all good. Mark said, I have to agree with your thoughts. I'm not against Gakpo. I really like the guy, but maybe long-term project where Cody is heading towards the latter stages of his career. Yeah, exactly. And if I'm Cody, I'm wanting to play all the time as well. At that point of his career. Yeah, I get it. You didn't really think I'd be just all of a sudden there, happy, and then go, no, lads, I'm fucked. No, it was grand, thank you. Yeah, it went good. I need to see your doctor, Craig. Sounds like an absolute charmer. Honestly, my doctor is like a second mother to me. She I couldn't speak highly enough of the relationship I have with my GP. She's exactly what I need, what I want in my life. She doesn't take bullshit. She cuts through me at times if she thinks I'm talking out my arse, but she gets me. She understands me, and I've been going to the same doctor now for about 20 years, and she's incredible. I'm very, very fortunate to have her as my GP. Tasman said, only reason I'd sell Cody is because we're getting both BARCOLA and MBAYE. If we're only going to get one, keeping him would be the right thing to do. Yeah, I get that. And like I said, the selfish, greedy fan in me wants to keep him while we bring in the two of them and see how they settle in. But, knowing the owners and the way football works, yeah, I get it. We want to recoup some money. So, this report that LFC Transfer Room just posted crediting La Parisienne _ PSG, they said Paris Saint-Germain are demanding about €50 million for Ibrahim MBAYE. Now, I don't know about you guys, but let me ask this in the poll. Oh my God, this poll's 50-50, by the way. Is selling Gakpo the right move? This poll's 50-50. So we're going to leave it at 50-50 because I like that. People are split on it. Let me just ask you this one. Which one is it? Is it this one? No. This one? Yeah. So, if the €50 million point is a true one, is it a fair price for MBAYE? Because I hate to agree with the selling club here, right? But if Ibrahim MBAYE is a talent that we think can develop into a superstar, 38 million pound doesn't feel extortionate to me. And I would say pay it. Because Real Madrid just got €135 million worth of potential in Diamande. So, I don't know, it doesn't feel extortionate to me to hear that they want €50 million. I think it's about £38 million. But to me, that doesn't feel robbery. Now, knowing that they were negotiating with Leverkusen somewhere around 40 to 45 million, it feels all right. I can't lie, it feels all right. Now, again, of course, I'm going to say, as a Liverpool fan, I want Liverpool to get the best deal possible, but it doesn't feel like you're going to walk away from this deal if that's the asking price, if you get me. Like, I think you find common ground somewhere. Winky Wonky Donkey, how are you, bro? Love the account name. I know I say that to you every time you come on, but, it's because it's true. You said, never normally catch a late stream. How's it going, Craig? Are you expecting big news shortly? Yes, we are. Now, what shortly is, how long is a piece of string, but imminently, yes. Paul, Liverpool have... So I just want to give some clarity to what Paul put into the chat there. Again, Liverpool agree 5-year contract with MBAYE. That's true, or at least that's sincere reporting, I should say. But it has no bearing on Liverpool and Paris Saint-Germain's negotiation. So sometimes in this game, you try to just put jigsaw pieces together. So the other night I came on and I said to you, Liverpool had a meeting, the second meeting, with MBAYE's representative, which I believe is George Mendes, and his family, who also, I think, take care of his affairs, in the London offices. I know that was the second meeting Liverpool had with them. One was in France, one was here. And we knew that took place, but I didn't know what it was about, and I didn't know the extent of the conversations. But then if you take into account that we said that happened a couple of days ago, then a story comes out of France to say that a 5-year contract has been agreed between him and Liverpool. It all makes sense, right? The timing of that conversation that we told you about versus that breaking news there that there's been agreement between Liverpool and his side of the deal. But you still need to get to the PSG agreement, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Why else would you be having the second conversations in Liverpool and then this news coming out? So, yeah, I definitely think the likelihood is both of them become Liverpool players. And again, look at the clues. They were left out of the PSG squad. Yeah, I think it happens, but my information on MBAYE is limited. And also, he doesn't take up a non-homegrown spot because he's under 21. So that's another positive about this one. So if Cody leaves, technically, that would free up the spot that BARCOLA would take of a non-homegrown player, so an overseas spot, which we don't have at the minute, but BARCOLA would take that, and then MBAYE would come in not needing one. Now, you can still free up some more by moving on the likes of Chiesa and a few others, but, these are all the things that you're trying to line up in your head and make them match. And sometimes you're trying to put square pegs in round holes, and sometimes you can be drawn into confirmation bias as well, where you look for things that feed into where you want it to go. And that's why I always try to challenge it and send it information to somebody else to have a look at who isn't a Liverpool fan with cold eyes, and then say to me what their reading of it is. Yeah, I think people really, 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 really do underestimate the graft that goes into this from our side of the... Like, I am fucking constantly on my phone and chatting with people and reading and talking and talking and talking. It's busy at the minute, but I wouldn't want it any other way. I love it. Is there a possibility we keep Gakpo and buy MBAYE? I mean, without knowing the ins and outs of the deal, my guess would be no, because of the finances of it. Again, let's do some quick maths on it. So if they want, let's say, £40 million from MBAYE, and so say 165 for MBAYE and BARCOLA in pounds sterling, 165 million. Throw the 35 million for Victor Munoz on that, that's £200 million. 60 million quid for Xhaka, that's £260 million that Liverpool would have put out. And only bringing in what? Curtis Jones money at the minute, which is 30 million. So then you're at a point where Liverpool have spent £230 million net, which eclipses last summer by 80 million quid. And I've never seen that as being FSG likely. So it's always felt like if we bring in MBAYE, they're going to want the £70 million or so to get that number back down towards 150 million. That's why I think Gakpo's deal is important in all of this, because it gets them back the big chunk of change. And it is mad to think about this. Like, we had last summer's business where we broke the record for Isak. We brought in Wirtz, again breaking our record. We brought in Ekitike. We brought in Frimpong. We brought in Kirkes. And technically, we'll have spent more money net in this window the way things lay if it worked out. Like, that blows my mind, because it doesn't feel like anywhere near as impressive of a window. But it also comes down to the fact that we don't have many options now of low-hanging fruit to sell for money because the contract situations. And again, that comes down to, like, I think now we're going to be punished somewhat as fans because Richard Hughes can't do his job properly. Richard Hughes cost Liverpool about 20 million quid, or however agreed that deal to send Elliott to Villa. That's a 20 million quid mistake. So that's, again, money that Liverpool don't get in. On top of that, now we're struggling to move Elliott on, so we find a buyer there. So you've got that. Then you've got the Jones situation where we're not exactly seeing full value. We've just seen Canade go for nothing. All of these things have knock-on effect. And like I've said, we've 11 players at a contract in a year as well who are going to have to be at least somewhat replaced. And what are you going to do for that? You're going to have to spend money on it. So I know a lot of people think that I'm just a hothead, but I think a lot of this stuff through very deeply from a lot of angles and try and figure out what the play is. And it all keeps coming back to FSG being cheap in my head. You know, so I'm hoping that when Stevie Boy asked earlier on, do you think that the new investors take over the club eventually? I'm hoping that the answer is probably yes, because it's the only way we're probably going to get to the point where we act like we should be acting in the market. If Gakpo's worth 70 million now, what's he worth in January? Well, it certainly wouldn't diminish because we gave him a new deal, so he's protected in that regard. Like Cody is, I don't remember exactly when his contract was signed, but he has at least 4 years on his deal. So, you know, I would say there's no depreciation in that regard at all. The only downside is if you're Spurs and you're the buying club, are you willing to wait that long? Probably not, because that's half the season and De Zerbi wants somebody for the now. Sorry, where am I at? Luke, how are you, Luke? Said, with MBAYE potential, we could triple our outlay down the line. And with Gakpo, we could keep him as backup while Ekitike and possibly sell him in January. I just don't think... I can't say never, but like Spurs won't want half a season without the multifaceted forward they want to bring in. So I would imagine if Spurs don't get Gakpo now, they'll pivot to somebody else, and then the option to sell him is gone. So, you know, we often look at these things through fans' eyes and idealistic eyes, and I get that. But there has to be logic and balance at play as well. And the logic of it is if you don't sell him this summer, you know, you probably have to wait till next summer. Or at least find somebody else in January because Spurs won't wait around. Spent over 300 million last season and paid for Jack in January. Literally every fucking word you've written there is wrong. Chris, every word you've written is wrong. So firstly, we paid for Jack this summer. The deal was agreed in January. So you're wrong about that. We spent £450 million last summer, but you keep forgetting the important word here, bro, and that's net after recouping money. So we brought back in 300 million quid. So our net spend, Chris, was, you with me? Do you need to get the abacus? You still with me? The net spend was 150 million. 450 minus 300 is 150. So again, if you want to come in to try and be cocky and arrogant and try to act like a prick, try and get it right, because I ain't going to listen to it. The chat deserve better than somebody trying to be pompous and arrogant when they're absolutely wrong. Wrong. So what's the point, mate? You know, was it worth it initially? Because it's just wrong. Anybody knows that this deal for Jacquet was paid for this summer. It's on the club's, going to be on the club's accounts for this summer. It was agreed in January for this summer, which is why he arrived. Are you still with me? This summer. Off topic. I think we don't want money and don't get both PST players leaving us goosed. I think that's just not going to happen. No, I don't know about MBAYE, Gary. I don't know, but look, BARCOLA is going to happen. And net spend does matter, especially when you have somebody like Trent who leaves for a small fee. Exactly, which was the height of stupidity, because that's all profit, and that's why you're right. It does matter. That's why moving on academy players, you see so many clubs in the Premier League like Chelsea doing it for big money because it's all profit on their balance sheet. And that's why I was so angry to see Trent go for next to nothing, to see Jones not going for full value, to see Kelleher going for fuck all. These are all things that we screwed ourselves over in because of the sporting director not being good enough for their jobs. So yeah, look, I'm all for being corrected on things like I've said. But before you come in to try and troll me or have a smart arse comment, just ask yourself a logical question. Why am I sitting here? Why so many people are watching? Because I probably have a fair idea what I'm talking about, right? So if I say the numbers, they're probably going to be realistic numbers and not just numbers I pulled out of my arse. And I've also had financial experts on the channel talking about all of this stuff before as well. So I know roughly where I'm going with it, mate. And I don't need people trying to be smart arses to undermine me, because it doesn't add that into the community, man. It doesn't add that into the channel. It doesn't add that into the chat. It just gives me an excuse to go in on you, which, you know, I don't want to do. Tim said, hey, Craig, any news on a DM? The only thing I can say to you is read out what David Lynch said earlier on, because I have no information that I can add. But David Lynch was on Anfield Index earlier on today, and his exact quote was, I had a conversation this morning, and I think the way it was phrased to me, there is close to 0% chance of a midfielder being signed, even in the event of Curtis Jones leaving. So you can't say 100% we're not signing a midfielder. All we can say there is the vibes that the journalists that cover the club are getting, or at least this one in particular, isn't a promising one. Whereas on BARCOLA, he said something like, and I don't have this quote written down there, but I do have it on my phone, so I'll read it out exactly as it was. On BARCOLA, he had a very different tone. On BARCOLA, he said, one sec, because I wrote this down because I hate to misquote anyone. On BARCOLA, he said, I wouldn't be surprised if the next thing we hear about this is a done deal, to be honest. So he's far more upbeat and ballsy on BARCOLA. He wasn't 100% certain on MBAYE. He was confident it could get done. But yeah, so he's not getting much joy when he speaks to the club sources that he has about a DM. But I think we all would say we need a DM. Or at least most of us would say we need a DM. Ben said, that makes me think McAllister is staying and be sold for 25-30, 1 year left. So there was a report the other day, forgive me, I can't remember where it came from, but it said that Liverpool are planning on starting contract negotiations with McAllister. Now, do I think they're starting them because they want him here for the long term? No. Honestly, from what I've been told over the last year, my guess is that McAllister just didn't get the interest in him in this window that he was expecting, or that Liverpool were expecting, and that if they do give him a new deal now, my, assessment of it would be they're trying to protect his value, like Cody Gakpo. He got a new deal, now we're talking about a potential sale. So I would imagine that would be the play here. But also, I don't mind McAllister staying and getting a new deal and staying for another 4 or 5 years, because I really like Alexis McAllister. And I've never been one to want to wish him away, but it was definitely a pretty open secret that Liverpool were open to a conversation at the right level about McAllister this summer. But the interest just doesn't seem to have been there from a buyer. Craig, I can't wait for the start of the season. Let's get these transfers done and dusted. I'm liking what Andoni is leading on the pitch. Cheers, fellow subs. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I'm buzzing, mate. Can't wait for Sunday. Usually I'm nervous when we go to St. James's Park because, it's Newcastle fans are loud and they get behind their team and we've a bit of history with them in recent times, but I can't help but feel we might be getting them at a good time. And I hope we do. I hope we catch them when they're not ready yet. Because that's always a fixture. When I look through the fixture list and see St. James's Park, they're usually competitive games. So I'm hoping that we catch Newcastle when they're not ready yet, because they've been decimated this summer of a lot of players. And I'm hoping that they're just not prepared yet and we get them at the right time. Could we get Trent back on loan? Would that work? Do you think Real Madrid are going to loan out a player that they could probably sell if they wanted to? Now, weirdly, there was a report coming out of Germany today that said, and I'm paraphrasing this, Harry Kane is working on trying to get Trent to come to Bayern Munich next summer. So I think other people probably would have seen this report as well, but it was out there somewhere saying Harry Kane was trying to woo Trent over to Munich for next summer. So when I looked at that and read that report, a couple of things jumped into my mind. Firstly, well, the grass ain't greener, motherfucker, is it? Was the first thing that came into my head. And also, how's your Ballon d'Or chase going? But also, how unfortunate it all was, because he could have stayed at Liverpool. He could have still been worshipped and idolised here. He could have been, still playing in the Champions League, still competing, but playing. Whereas he got his move to Madrid, left with a bit of a bitter taste for a lot of us. Certainly it stung. And now it's, at this point, just not working out. And I just can't help but feel it's unfortunate all around, because nobody's surprised that hasn't worked out from Madrid. We all kind of thought that he was overestimating his potential there. We all knew what the Madrid media and the Madrid fans were like, and that he wasn't going to get anywhere near the kind of good graces he got at Liverpool from the Liverpool fans, who were, defending him a lot of the time against the he can't defend conversation. And he's gone over there and he dug this hole for himself. He's the one talking about wanting to be a right back who wins Ballon d'Ors, and gone over there to Madrid and that being the dream and learning Spanish and all this shit. And, well, how's it going for you now, fella? It's not exactly tickety-boo, but that's Mr. Alexander-Arnold's problem. Tobias said, what would you prefer, keeping Gakpo or getting MBAYE? So the honest answer, Tobias, is I don't know enough about MBAYE to give you a credible answer. Yeah, I don't know, because I don't know if MBAYE, is going to be somebody that mightn't be fully ready for 18 months, or if he could be just dropped in and played soon. If we're working off the proviso that he could be dropped in and played soon, I'm calm about it. But if he's another project player, I'd rather keep the experienced pro for the time being anyway. With the likes of Elliott and others, we should sell cheap to a Fulham or a Coventry or teams like that and put a 20% sell-on clause in. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Get as much as you can and try and structure the deal as well as you can for Liverpool. But I don't, it's been pretty quiet even in the media, right, about stuff for Harvey Elliott. I don't know where he ends up, but I'd be very, very surprised if he doesn't get a move for a couple of reasons. One, Liverpool are losing for nothing in a year. And he's going to want to get back playing again. So I'm sure something will be sorted out from before the window shuts. What fault is on Slot, percentage-wise, for the fitness last year? And can we blame him for the injuries? Do you think the team progress suffered and confidence? So I'm not a sports scientist, so I feel like it's unfair of me to talk about percentages. But what I would say is, Maximus, I was really surprised that we changed and we went back to a more pedestrian-paced brand of football, because it isn't what we were being sold when he came in. And it wasn't what we utilised when we won the league. So to see him get to that level and see physically with our eyes that the players weren't able to cope and weren't fit enough, I don't think it's speaking out of turn to suggest that the training method surely had the part to play in it. And then if you look at it another way and you think, look at Frimpong's career, never been one to struggle with injuries, comes into Liverpool, training is different, and he's 5 injuries in the year. So other people who are far better versed to talk about this than me seem to think that there is a real question to be asked about red zone training and the way it was implemented under Arne Slot. So the likes of Simon Brundish and others who are, much better qualified to talk about training methods than I would be, they seem to be questioning it quite a bit as well. And what Chris Williams said a few months back has come to fruition as well. He said, watch when a new coach comes in, everybody starts talking about enjoying the training more, things being, more upbeat. And it has been. Right, I'm going to go, ladies and gentlemen, and record the late night video because there's a few bits in my inbox that I have to get to. Just before you all head off, if you can, do hit that like button for me. And don't forget to join the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp to get all the news directly to your phone. I'm just trying to see which one's the WhatsApp. It's this one? Yeah. Scan that QR code there on the screen and that will bring you into the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp. We'll also be able to enter all of our giveaways in there as well. We'll be putting in polls and asking you your opinion on the season and transfer news. So if you haven't joined us, join the other 20,000 people that have joined the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp, and we would appreciate your support in there. And also our website. We put up 8 to 10 articles a day. You'll find our latest podcast, our latest YouTube video, and lots of other stuff at AnfieldAgenda.com. So do check that one out, and we hope it is your go-to for all things Liverpool Football Club related. Right. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow night. Remember, Connor will be here twice tomorrow. I won't be back till tomorrow evening, so we'll see you guys for the late night agenda. Thank you all for joining me this evening. I appreciate your support. It was another fun stream, and hopefully we have a here we go soon. So look, I'll do my 5-second count here to make sure that I don't end the stream before I finish talking. So much love, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.